Some drivers can make more than $50,000 a year. Their buses may be up to 40 feet long and weigh 40,000 pounds, but that shouldn't deter anyone from a job with great pay and benefits.
Marco, what's the biggest thing you've ever driven?
One of those big moving vans.
Okay, all right. So we're going to add another 12 feet to that.
He even claims to be able to get me driving one of these buses. This is one of their newer all-electric buses.
Come on in.
Getting comfortable, adjusting mirrors,
That's going to be your danger zone is your back tire.
tweaking some buttons and knobs.
Here, you have the big okay. We're good to go. And it's in drive. And now we're driving.
Look at that.
Facebook status, huh?
Look at that. This is a different view from up here.
Oh, yeah. And just think, this is your office.
Yeah.
We're hiring.
Yeah, I can do weekends.
AJ says there's a lot more to it, but for a satisfying career where you get to be customer service on wheels, all he needs is 8 weeks to get you out there.
We take baby steps and we set you up for success.
In Pinellas County, Marco Villarreal, 8 on your side.
I think Marco might have found a new calling there. Well, PSTA says they have different shifts available and a variety of benefits. All applicants need is a high school diploma or GED and 5 years of a good driving record.
So here are some more examples of the headlines that we got from that media day from Bay News 9, ABC Action News, Fox 13, and we even got Telemundo to come out to do a full Spanish story to get more audience members as that. So with that total, we reached 8 million people. So 8 million people saw those stories after they aired. So, Chair Gerard, what does that mean?
What does that mean, Stephanie?
Let me tell you one last time. So because of this successful media day and 8 million people seeing our need, we tripled our applicants within the next month of these stories airing. So a total of 105 people applied to join the PSTA family. So for reference, the previous bus operator application round had only 31 applicants. So a big step up, very successful. So again, this was truly a group effort coming together to find a unique solution to a growing problem. But really, that's what PSTA does on the daily, so it's no surprise, right? But we wouldn't be here today without all of your leadership and of course Brad, but I really would like to shout out our superstar eye candy, Mr. AJ Ortiz, and of course the bus operators that helped me out during the day, Stacy Johnson, Elka Snell, Nehemiah Guerrera, and I'd like to shout out the transportation side as well. So I'm proud to announce that we filled our need of 86 bus operators, so woohoo! And you see in this picture, Brad actually got the honor of accepting the award earlier this month at the Transform Conference in Seattle. And here's our big trophy. Woohoo! Right. So we are the champions. So with that, Chair Gerard, I'll pass it back to you for any questions.
Thank you. Do you have any questions? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Right, next up, we're going to recognize our outgoing board member.
Yes.
Brad, would you like to say some things?
This is a little bit of a unique recognition for Commissioner Karen Seal because while we want to recognize her and thank her for her last year of service and I think a previous year that she served on PSTA. For most of her time in office, she has been an incredible transportation leader, but from the side, from not on PSTA, which has sometimes been a good thing, I think. It's sometimes been helpful. Commissioner Seal has been a fantastic advocate for transportation improvements of all kinds, whether it's buses or road improvements or ferry boats or whatever. I know I've been in meetings with her on all kinds of modes, gondolas and things like that too, that she keeps track of. You know, I think actually, Commissioner Seal, you and I have a very similar background that has got us into this. My father was a professor of transportation in Pennsylvania, and he had a role with another professor in, when I was a little kid, creating the bus system for Penn State students that goes around the campus now. And Commissioner Seal's father was basically one of the architects, one of the creators of PSTA, the PSTA that we have now, as a Clearwater City Councilman. And he served on PSTA for a very long time and was the longest ever serving chair of PSTA back in the day. And I think she's done a better job of following her dad in his footsteps, because she has passed on some kind of transportation interest to her kids. And I have completely failed at that. My kids are running away from buses as fast as they can. I know at least her one son, Ryan, has come to meetings with me and is interested in transportation. So she's had a fantastic role model career. She's been a great leader in transportation. I've seen that she's gotten recognized by Ford Pinellas and others for her activities as well. And we certainly want to thank her for her service to PSTA. Thank you, Commissioner Seal. She already said, she said that she already had a lifetime pass on PSTA, and
She has it with her.
well, we did get her a lovely recognition of her service. Instead of a gold lifetime pass, we got her a Sunrunner Gold card.
All right.
And she's the first one of us to receive one of these signature Sunrunner
All right. Posters.
one of only 200 signs. Sunrunner grand opening signs. So, could we take a picture with you? Maybe with some of this swag?
With the swag.
Chair Director, would you like to be in the picture?
Oh, sure.
Well, it's a nice time to be leaving after the Sunrunner finally is up and running. And, you know, you all have to be so proud of that. And it's just going to really be a game changer, I think, for the bus system. And I have to tell you, my dad just loved PSTA. And he did serve 12 years as chair. And he went to all the bus conferences, and I gave Brad a whole bunch of his old, they would collect little lapel buttons. And so Brad's the proud owner of all of my dad's old lapel buttons. So, and thank you to the staff and for everyone for what you do. You really do help so many of our citizens, and it's greatly, greatly appreciated. So thank you. Thank you, Brad. Good job.
Yeah.
I wasn't able to go the other day. I bet it was fun taking the bus down.
It runs every 15 minutes, you're good.
What's that?
It runs every 15 minutes, we can still do it.
Thank you.
All right. All right, now's the time for public comment on consent agenda items or items not on the agenda. For those who would like to speak about any of the action items, we will give you the opportunity when that item is discussed. If you'd like to speak, please fill out a green card and give it to Rachel. Are there any members of the public here who wish to make a comment? No. Okay, then. Okay. Next up is the consent agenda. Are there any items anyone would like to pull?
Move approval.
Second.
Thank you. Can you bring up the voting board? Oh, I'm sorry. Do we? No, that's right. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, and it is unanimous. All right. All right, committee updates. Let's start with Vice Chair Driscoll with a Forward Pinellas update, followed by Commissioner Flowers with a T-BARTA update.
Thank you. The Forward Pinellas Board met in person on October 12th, 2022. Here are some highlights. The board received a presentation on draft recommendations for the Target Employment and Industrial Land Study, also known as TEALS, which is geared towards addressing challenges including the market pressure for development of residential and commercial uses rather than industrial development. And just using that to address the lack of housing and commercial development that we have versus the industrial land that we have available. So we received an update on that, and we also received a presentation on T-BARTA's aerial gondola feasibility study, which evaluated a corridor in downtown St. Petersburg and another one in Clearwater connecting downtown to the beach. The study results show that gondolas are well suited for the Tampa Bay area, and there are suitable alignments that exist to connect Clearwater to Clearwater Beach. Those routes are technically feasible, the project is financially viable, and the public appears to be supportive of the project. Forward Pinellas staff provided an update on the Waterborne Transportation Initiative, and this included information on a new FDOT policy regarding increased flexibility of using the district dedicated revenue for premium transit service operating costs, which would likely include waterborne transportation. In addition, it was noted that Manatee County is starting a new ferry operation that's using tourist development tax revenue for some of its funding. And we might be inviting them to present at a future Waterborne Committee meeting for Forward Pinellas. The next meeting for the Forward Pinellas Board will be held on November 9th, 2022. Thank you.
Good job. Thank you. And Commissioner Flowers?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We had a lively and sad T-BARTA meeting. So let's start out with the sad stuff. The sad things are that T-BARTA will be unwinding. After much discussion, lack of fiscal support from some of the partners, lack of funding from the state government, it was determined by the board that T-BARTA, as it currently exists, would not be able to remain. So there are a lot of things that we need to consider as it relates to unwinding, because T-BARTA was put in place by the legislature, so we can't just arbitrarily make that decision that T-BARTA will no longer operate at this point. And so we do have our attorney and our lobbyists working with us to try to determine how that has to be done so that we're doing it in the proper way, because there are some grants that we've received, funding initiatives, and so we just need to kind of work through those things. It is sad because something that was stated about the history of T-BARTA by those who were here back then, the way that T-BARTA was set up, it was never set up to be able to receive the financial resources it needed to operate as an entity. It would always be dependent upon municipalities and county government systems putting in their dollars in order to continue to run it. So that's the sad thing. We do have enough funding to carry us out through 2023, so a lot of that time will be spent going through that unwinding process, as well as finishing up the projects we have on the table on the board right now. The one thing I do want to say is, and I would say this if the person was here, because I've already shared it with them, comments have been made about staff is fleeing and things of that nature. Staff is leaving because they see the writing on the wall. Are you going to stick around if you have your own board member saying, we're going to dissolve you? So you start looking for other opportunities. So yes, some staff have left. We've lost some good ones to the city of St. Petersburg. So their gain is our loss. we, lost some other positions that we've had, but we are able to maintain the day-to-day operations of the organization. So in case you should hear any of that, I just wanted to share that with you. So having said that, now I'm gonna perk you up. Yay! We actually had a representative from CSX Railways come to us. He is the vice president, the regional vice president for state government systems, Mr. Craig Caruso. And it was wonderful to finally put a name and a face and a title with the entity that has consistently stated that they are not interested in selling us their rail lines, may be interested in leasing, not sure. And so he explained a lot and gave a lot of texture to all of the conversations we've been having about passenger rail in our community. He did say that CSX would entertain a conversation if there was a distinct plan in place. So if it was something that PSTA decided to do that involved passenger rail, they are interested, but they want to see a plan, at least the outline of a plan, something like that, before they will move on. He felt that the new president of CSX is very open. He stated that the new president has been traveling around the state, around the region, all along the eastern seaboard, meeting with different organizations, and he's learning a lot. So I just thought I'd throw that out there because, of course, what T. Barter had on the list is not going to make it because of our unwinding. So it was really good. It has been suggested also that maybe some of the MPOs that we have around the area, that those entities consider moving some of those plans forward or joining forces to move some of those plans forward when it comes to passenger rail. For our US 19 regional BRT, work is complete on the study. On the US 19 regional BRT study, the designs and concepts of operation weren't as cost effective as we had hoped they would be. So the team is evaluating express bus service as an alternative. The executive team met October 6th to review the new analysis, and we're very pleased with the results of those analyses. And those analyses were presented to the board, T. Barter Board, on October 21st. The project will now be transitioned to the MPOs as we, again, transition and move out. The gondola study, super excited about that. And I think it'll serve Clearwater well. And I'm not going to repeat what was stated because Councilmember Driscoll already gave that update on that. So the I-275 regional BRT, all environmental and cultural assessment has been completed and submitted. We've completed the worksheet as well, and all supporting materials, to the Federal Transit Authority on October 7th. That's been completed. We anticipate a response by the end of the year on that. We'll make that presentation at our board meeting, T. Barter's board meeting in November, and we'll see where it goes from there. Commute Tampa Bay. There was some conversation regarding the demand for the van pool program as it continues to grow. It's driven mostly by rides to James Hadley VA Medical Center, which is absolutely fine because that's supporting our veterans, and to MacDill Air Force Base. There were a total of 193 van pools in September, which was one more than the all-time high in August, and 25% more than that in September of 2021. I'm going, because I took a lot of notes myself. I'm not going to go through some of the other stuff because it really will become moot. But if you have any other questions regarding T. Barter, please feel free to share those with David Green or staff that are there, and they will be more than happy to speak with you about that. I think all of you have already heard or know that Tampa had a decision against them when it came to the referendum that was being placed on the ballot for them to tax themselves to be able to continue to financially afford to operate their bus line service over there, and some of their other transportation requests. The decision has been up for appeal. The information is supposed to still be on the ballot as far as I know. to allow the public to decide, but we'll see what happens with that because, of course, HART would be an integral part of any BRT regional services that would be occurring. So if HART doesn't have the finances to continue, then that's an even bigger conversation. So that concludes my report.
Any questions? Okay, thank you. All right, first action item is Pinellas County Clearwater Transit Center funding. And Debbie Leos is going to present the recommended interlocal funding agreement with Pinellas County for the Clearwater Transit Center.
Well, good morning, everyone, and I love the PSCA Never Sit Still. We just had the grand opening of the Sunrunner, and now with the action item today, we are going to be completing the funding for the Clearwater Multimodal Transit Center. Now, the chart that I have up here, you can see that the cost of the project has increased to $45 million. So we've been able to, with some great funding partners, with FDOT, Forward Pinellas, of course, our USDOT RAISE grant of $20 million, PSTA's own grant funding, we were able to put almost all of the funding together up to $35 million. However, we are about $10 million short to complete this funding package. As a result, we have been meeting with the Pinellas County staff, including the administrator. And we've asked them to become another partner, along with FDOT, Forward Pinellas, and USDOT, to complete the funding on this package. We discussed this last week at the Finance Committee meeting, and since then, we've had some further discussions with the county staff and the county administrator. And what the county is going to be presenting at their commission meeting is the interlocal agreement not to exceed $8 million. So as a result, I went back, took a look at our capital projects over the next 5 years, took a look at what I could move around, push out a little bit, and as a result, I am able to come up with the additional money to complete this funding package along with the county. So one of the things that we've been discussing with the county staff is risk mitigation. So one of the things that was important to them is let's have an amount not to exceed. So regardless of whether the project comes in over budget or not, they have a very set dollar amount that they know they can work with. As you know, our Sunrunner project came in about just on time and under budget, so I feel very confident in our staff. The other thing is that they're going to provide a representative to sit at the table with us. Now, what I love about that is we do not build buildings every single day. They do a lot more of that, and I love the fact that they're going to provide someone to be with us to help us through the process. In addition, I've agreed with them to use their funding last, so they'll be the last dollar amounts used. So I will be using everybody else's funding, putting them last, which means I will be upfronting their funding and then seeking reimbursement. I feel comfortable with that. And other than that, we're going to be seeing this on the county commission. I'm very excited about that on Tuesday, November 15th. So in your packet is a draft interlocal agreement. And I was very appreciative of the work Nikki Day did along with the county lawyers because it went very quickly and very smoothly in putting all this together, that we may be able to get everything in place by November 15th. So I'll take any questions or turn it back to the chair.
Questions? Thank you for working with us. Mr. Robinson.
Yeah, thank you. So when we talk about the price of the building, how far along are we in the actual construct, or to getting to the point where we have a guaranteed maximum price? Or are we going that route?
Go right ahead.
Good morning, Abhishek Dayal, Director of Project Management. So right now we are in early preliminary design, and so we're going to transition to final design, and that's going to give us the opportunity to sharpen our pencils a little bit and fully define what the cost is going to be. including the construction costs, the materials, delivery, and as such. So it's probably going to take about a year to complete the design and know what the cost would be.
So how, and I'm just coming from my background here with the City of Largo. We just broke ground on a new city hall or Horizon project. So that project went up about $30 million from what we initially had budgeted for. And obviously, we're at a little bit more, obviously, we're having to go to the county now for $10 million. How sure are we that that 10 million, and obviously, we've had to renegotiate or move some other monies around for other projects, capital projects. So I just want to make sure that, because again, I'm probably a little jaded, but I want to make sure that PSTA is in a good position and understands that the $45 million total that we have for this project is going to cover that project.
Yeah, that was exactly our concern too. Looking at the other buildings, the city halls and other infrastructure that was happening around the county and how the costs went up, which is really the reason why we updated the cost of the project. If you recall, the project cost was about $34 million, $35 million, and so taking that into account, we added some contingency for these types of price escalations, material shortage, labor increases, and that kind of stuff. So that's why the cost is what you see in front. And again, just to point out, when we start design and we get closer to putting it out for bid, that's when we will really start to see what the prices are and adjust the costs accordingly.
Okay, so, but as of today, we're confident that the $45 million will cover the project.
Yes, as of today, we've got sufficient contingency built in.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? We'll keep our fingers crossed.
Yep.
Okay. All right then.
We have the action item on the interlocal agreement with Pinellas County to be voted on.
Right. Do we have any public comment? No? No public comment? Okay. I actually remembered.
Second.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. Can you bring the screen up, please? Thank you. And that is quickly unanimous. All right. Thank you all. Okay, next up, we have 2023 state and federal legislative priorities. Right? Brad?
Good morning, everybody. So every year, the PSTA board adopts a set of priorities that we strive for in Tallahassee and in Washington, D.C. In the coming year. The legislative committee met earlier this month, and recommended the list here. I made a short little summary PowerPoint. I see our state legislative professional has come to the podium. Thank you, Ron. And I saw that Caitlin Bailey in the back there, are also RSA representative from RSA. Ron, do you want to kind of tick through? If you go to the next slide, that one, yeah. Maybe you want to talk about those?
Brad, Madam Chair, board members, thank you for the opportunity to be with you this morning. It feels like we just got home from session, but believe it or not, it's already been like 8 months. Elections in 13 days. Organizational session is November the 22nd. So special session probably in December, it looks like, for at least 2 weeks, dealing with some hurricane recovery efforts, and also some insurance premium, some homeowners insurance policy issues. Probably 2 committee weeks in January, 3 committee weeks in February, and then session's going to be here before we know it. So it's time to, believe it or not, start talking about what are our priorities for next session. So I can probably be pretty quick on some of these, because some of these you've seen before. Let me start with the first one. Electric buses continue to be a priority of this board. And I think it's a great opportunity for us to go back to Tallahassee. We have not asked for a specific earmark for PSTA in quite some time. We've, really the priority for us as a board for the last probably 5 years is really going to Tallahassee and working within the system of trying to get grants from DOT, which we've been very successful on over the last few years. And so going back this time is a priority for us is if electric buses continue to be priority of the board, number one. Number two is, if you all continue to make investments in that, not only the bus is going to cost money, but the infrastructure to go along with the buses is going to cost a lot of money as well. We need to leverage the fact that you've made investments, the state has actually made some investments, but more importantly, through the VW settlement, by the way, but also the federal government has made some investments as well. So I think there's a real opportunity to go to the state and leverage some of the investments that have already been made by them through the VW settlement as well through the federal government, is to come back and ask for $1 million appropriation for infrastructure as it relates to our electric bus fleet. So that's priority number one. I would think we're very well positioned there. We have not been to Tallahassee in quite some time looking for dollars, and so I think because of that, I think we're in a really, really good position. Plus, we're going to have a lot of non-recurring revenue, once again, in Tallahassee to spend on projects such as this. So this is, I think, a really good ask for us in Tallahassee during the 23 session. The second one is to maintain the transportation disadvantage dollars in Tallahassee, and specifically the Innovative Grant Fund. So if you rewind a couple years ago, there was $10 million that was attached to the corridors bill that ended up being repealed by the legislature. The $10 million went away as well. The grant program was actually kind of embedded in those dollars. They came back last year and they put some of the dollars back in of the $10 million. They didn't put the entire $10 million back into transportation disadvantage, but they did put some dollars back into the overall formula, which ended up getting Pinellas County more dollars, by the way. But more importantly, they did put additional dollars back into the TD Innovative Grant Fund. We want to make sure that still continues. That's very important for our late shift program. So we're going to continue to advocate for that. I think we're well positioned there again. And I think we're going to go back to Tallahassee, with Brad and board members and make the point that we had $10 million that were set aside for some of these programs. I think they spent 6 or 7 last year. There's some dollars they could have spent above that. So we're going to go back and try to get additional dollars, not only for transportation disadvantage program itself, but specifically the grant program. So the next 2 issues I'm going to talk about, they're more executive branch related and not legislative, but they could become legislative if we don't get the traction we want working with the agencies. Number one, expedite Rule 1490. I think we've been talking about 1490 now for 5 years. We've been talking about this a long time, so I'm hoping that the last update that Brad and I got from DOT is this is a rulemaking process through DOT that would allow organizations to spend dollars on transportation disadvantage programs, not just that are through the TD program, but specifically I'll be able to spend other DOT-related general revenue dollars or grant dollars as well. 1490, the last update we have is the rule itself should be done by the end of the year. Unfortunately, once that process is done, it's about a 6-month process once that's released from beginning to end, which puts us probably the middle of next year. Last year, we actually proposed some language in one of the DOT bills that was moving to help kind of expedite that process. We'll be working with DOT again to make sure that we believe they're getting to the point where the rule is going to come out, and we'll actually have a final rule by the middle of next year. So that's something that we'll continue to work on. The last one I'll talk about is Medicaid. So from a Medicaid standpoint there are a number of trips today that you as an organization pay for that will get a phone call. It should have been paid actually through a Medicaid eligible trip. For a variety of reasons, which I won't go into, they end up calling PSTA. You end up we end up paying the cost of that trip. When we know, by the way, in many, many cases that it was Medicaid eligible and it should be reimbursed or should have been paid by the state. The plan there is Secretary Marsteller, who is a relatively new secretary for ACA, we're going to have her down in Tampa Bay prior to session. She's going to come and we'll spend some time with her talking specifically about how can we be a better partner, that if we're actually taking on trips on behalf of ACA or behalf of, from a Medicaid eligible trip standpoint, how can PSTA be reimbursed for that? And we've had some ideas in the past, like for example, can we have access to the Medicaid database? There's obviously security issues with that. We said, fine, we get that, we understand that. we even came back with is, well, if we knew their trips were eligible, that we could just submit to you all. And obviously the short answer there is transit organizations are not eligible for Medicaid, eligible trips to be reimbursed. So that's something that we'll have additional conversations with Secretary Marsteller in Tallahassee about. Next slide, please. I won't spend a lot of time.
I think that's the only slide.
So
we did have the other.
Yeah, there's a couple other things on the agenda dealing with funding flexibility, which I won't go into, but it's something that DOT's been working on over the last couple of years that we'll continue to advocate for, by the way. So relating to SIS funding, DDR funding, pre-award authority for DOT grants to allow us the ability to kind of mirror what the federal government does, be able to spend dollars before we actually get the dollars from the state. So those are some things that we'll continue to talk about as well. Let me talk just briefly about timeline standpoint. Once you all approve this today, our goal would be is to start meeting with delegation members between now and the end of the year after the election. Our opportunity at that point would be then kind of turn our focus to Tallahassee. We'll have, once committee week schedules come out, which we do not have yet, we can guess, we've been doing this for a while, I can guess when the committee weeks are going to be, but we'll have 2 committee weeks in January, 3 in February. Like we've done in the past is, Caitlin will be working with the board on scheduling probably 2 trips for Brad and a couple of board members. I know many of you have come to Tallahassee. That's critically important, by the way, because the elected officials see us all the time. Having you all come back from their community to Tallahassee, spending time with them up there. Tallahassee is not easy to get to. They know it's a huge time commitment for you to be up there. You coming up and advocating on behalf of this agenda is critically important. Let me talk about, from a delegation standpoint, just one thing we need to focus on as well. We believe that Senator Hooper will be the chair of the Transportation Economic Development Appropriations Committee, which obviously is very important because many of the things we just talked about will be flowing through that committee. So having somebody from Pinellas County that understands these issues, understands PSTA, I think will hopefully pay dividends for us in the Senate and in the legislature for the next 2 years. So I'll stop there and be happy to answer any questions that board members may have. Brad, did I miss anything?
No, I was just going to, thank you, Ron. Just one thing, just looking at the list and just thinking about it, it is very, a key component, I think very important for us to make those visits to Tallahassee. Because if you look at the list, the things that we've had, I don't think, and some of you can correct me, but I don't think that we've ever really had a legislator express any concern or not support for our various initiatives. The ones that are not moving forward, the 1490 and the Medicaid, are due to staff turnover. Folks, I think mostly folks retiring at the DOT or changing jobs at ACA, and so it's just constantly a educational effort. I mean, some of these programs like the Transportation Disadvantage is super complex, and it takes sometimes years to get some of these folks to kind of understand and problem solve some of these things.
This is year number 7 with PST. I think I'm finally getting it, Brad.
Yeah, no, but I just wanted to thank the members who have come to Tallahassee with that, because it's important. Yeah.
Madam Chair, I had one comment.
Please.
Ron, I just want to say thank you for all your hard work. You and Caitlin, when we come to Tallahassee, you're on top of it, and you've got the appointments ready for us to go. And I just want to say thank you for your great presentation and your hard work for the PSTA. I look forward to working with you this year. Thank you so much.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Commissioner Cox?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Ron.
Good morning, Vince.
Several years ago, I was in Tallahassee with Brad and Whitney and Commissioner Long, and we were working on having TNCs be able to transport Medicaid clients to Medicaid appointments. Is that still happening right now?
So it's not specifically through Medicaid, but they are now eligible for, I don't think they're a direct Medicaid provider, but they do have the ability for, it's called TNC, it's called Uber Health, I believe, where there's specific trips, but I don't think it's specifically Medicaid reimbursed, I don't believe so.
Okay, but my concern, or our concern, is that Medicaid recipients have always been kind of second-class citizens when it comes to medical appointments. And we've dropped the ball, the state's dropped the ball, in my opinion, because they regulate that and monitor that. So I just hope we can do whatever we can to help Medicaid recipients get timely and safe transportation to their appointments. Thank you, Ron.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, thank you, Ron.
Very good. Thank you, appreciate it.
Would
You
the
want board
commission
approval
like
on it?
to make a
Oh, yes.
recommendation on this before we go on to the federal?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the 2023 state.
Yeah, I was going to call for public comment.
Oh, okay, sure.
But yes, you
Do we have any public comments? Okay, thank you.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please bring up the voting screen. And that
go.
is unanimous. Okay. Okay, next up is
Okay,
federal.
federal, and I don't think we have Harry, is he on
Yeah.
Zoom?
I am here, Brad.
Oh, you're here, good.
Okay, great.
Hello, Harry. Harry Glenn is from Van Scoyoc Associates and back up in Washington DC. On the screen, I don't know if you can see it, Harry, if you go to the next slide, Carlos. Go to the federal one. There. I'll let Harry kind of talk a little bit of details. These are very sort of consistent with what we've had in the past, except for item number 3, which I can talk about. But Harry, do you want to talk about the appropriations process?
Sure. So thanks, Brad and Madam Chair. First of all, let me just say I was so excited about Thursday's program, so thank you for letting me be there and be a part of that. That was Sunrunner grand opening was a great program. Just it's an indication of how good a job and what a team you all have assembled there, Brad and company, to put together the Sunrunner project. I know we had many meetings in Washington with the delegation and with USDOT and FTA folks, and that project has everything and more that you built when we talked about it all those years. So congratulations to everybody at the board for sticking with it all those years, and to the staff and Brad and Abhishek and everybody for pulling that project together. It really was a great thing. I'm so happy to see some of the nice letters to the editor that have been flowing in the paper about how exciting people are about riding the Sunrunner. So anyway, the federal agenda, we did present to the legislative committee a couple weeks ago. A couple items here. The first one is, as you may know, Congress is typically not finished up their appropriations process yet for the year. So they're operating under a continuing funding resolution through December 16th. Hopefully between the post-election period, which starts November 14th, and December 16th, they'll get all of their appropriations work done to fund all of the transportation programs need to be funded. And one of the things we're continuing to watch is Congressman Chris, before he left office, provided funding for electric infrastructure for your facility there to provide solar panel and charging. So we want to make sure that that project gets funded when the final appropriations bills are done. We don't expect any problems, and that shouldn't be. And then hopefully you'll get those funds released last year. As you recall, he did an earmark project for you last year, which I understand from Debbie, you all are in the final stages of getting those funds for last year, inline chargers and some of that equipment. So that's great. So everything's good there. The other thing we continue to work on is just advocating for the highest possible funding figures in the final appropriations bill for fiscal year 23 for public transportation. Those regular appropriations funds plus the enhanced funding through the bipartisan infrastructure bill are creating some great opportunities for PSTA to compete and win for contracts. It's been a good year for PSTA, as you know. Everybody knows you got the RACE grant, $20 million, which is great, but you also got the second highest bus and bus facilities grant in fiscal year 22, which is, again, indicative of the great team you have put together there to compete and win these projects. So the other thing is, item 2 is with the upcoming fiscal year 23 funds, as you know, your apportionment is split 4 ways actually between PSTA, Hart, Pasco County, and T-BARTA. And I know there was a bit of a bump in the road in the current year for that split. And we've done some work with the congressional delegation to educate them about that and understand why that split is important and how it has been arrived at historically. So I don't know, Brad, I don't think we anticipate any problems with the split when the fiscal 23 apportionment comes sometime next year. The third thing I think is check the box on that one, Sunrunner, is everything is done, you're running, everything's good there. So I don't think we have to do any more on that other than every time we go up to USDOT and FTA just to give them a progress report on how good that project is and how well it's working. Fourth is advocate for USDOT discretionary grant funds. As you know, Congress has to every year appropriate funds for programs like the large construction grant program, which is what funded Sunrunner, but also the RAISE grant program, the bus and bus facilities grant program, and the low and no electric bus program, which you've also been very successful at over the years. So we want to continue to advocate for the highest numbers there, but also make sure that the funds that were included in the bipartisan infrastructure bill to continue to flow out over the next 4 years, they've already flowed out this year, are not reduced. But those enhanced funds have been extremely helpful for transit agencies across the country, and we'll continue to work to make sure that those highest levels are funded. Just as a parenthetical note, just recall the bipartisan infrastructure bill was $1 trillion in infrastructure funded over 5 years. So most of those grant opportunities that you've been applying for will be funded at enhanced levels for 5 fiscal years. We've completed the first of the 5 cycles this year. Most of them, with the exception maybe 1 or 2 grant programs. I don't think the ferry boat program has been awarded yet, Brad, but all the other ones have been. And so sometime early next year, they'll start rolling out the notice of funding opportunities for the fiscal 23 programs. Brad, I think there's a second slide for federal agenda.
Yeah, well, no, that's only,
Is that it?
I sort of
That's it? Okay.
summarized all the grants into the one advocate for the grants.
The only other thing I would add, Brad, on the federal side is, as you know, you're going to have 2, not necessarily new congressmen representing PSTA in the next Congress, which will convene on January 3rd. As you know, Kathy Castro will be coming back. She represented Pinellas County for a few years, a couple years ago. Every time we go to Washington, we meet with Kathy Castro and her staff. Had some good meetings with them. I think they're very supportive of what's going on there. Sunrunner, a good part of the Sunrunner will run through her new district. So we briefed her about that. So I think she'll be a strong advocate for you on your needs. And then obviously, as you know, in the 13th Congressional District, we'll have a new member of Congress representing that district. So we'll have to do some educational work with the new member of Congress there once they're sworn in early next year. So that'll be another, I think, to do. And then I think the other thing I would say, Brad, is I know you all come up for the APTA conference and other times throughout the year. Congress will be back and open, operating under the normal visiting scheme starting on January 3rd. So it'll be much easier for you to come up and see your members of Congress and other key members of Congress from the delegation and the committee staff next time you're up. And hopefully the Department of Transportation is a little more open and accessible too than it has been in the past. So with that, Brad, I'm happy to answer any questions or provide any more information.
And Madam Chair, if I could just talk a little bit about number 3 on there, retain Sunrunner cost savings for improvements. This was something I added, Harry, since the Legislative Committee recommended this. After meeting with Dr. Yvette Taylor and her staff that came down for the Sunrunner event last week, before the Sunrunner event, we met. And as Debbie Leas described, the Sunrunner project is going to be coming under budget, and there's going to be some cost savings that, at least in other projects, if that's happened, there's been a process where the FTA can allow you to spend those dollars on enhancing the Sunrunner. It has to be spent on the project. We can't use it for Clearwater, Commissioner Albritton. It has to be on Sunrunner, but I don't think I realized that the federal government has to sign off on those use. And there has been some cases in the past where the federal government has denied the applicant and asked for the money back and put back into the hopper. And I don't want that to happen. The City of St. Petersburg, and we have some ideas already, and we're going to be working with the Federal Transit staff. I think this is kind of, as Ron described, hopefully kind of like the administrative kind of procedure, but I just wanted to put it on the list to maybe, if anything goes wrong with it, maybe we alert our delegation, to that.
Brad, do you know when that decision will be made? How soon do you have for them to make that decision?
Well, I know that we have to submit a plan for how the cost savings funds, we intend to use them in the process, what we'd like to use them, and then they approve that. And it sounded like it shouldn't be a problem, but I just want to make sure.
Yeah, Brad, as we don't have a congressman from from District 13 right now, but maybe if it stretches into January, maybe we could get a joint letter from the two new Pinellas County congresspeople to FTA, just in supporting your request to keep those funds within the project.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Yes, Commissioner Driscoll.
Thank you. With that, Brad, can you talk about what that timeline would be and maybe some examples of the improvements that you have in mind? We are talking capital improvements, right? And
Right.
operating budget related. So the Sunrunner is so great already. What could you possibly add to make it better?
Well, there's been lots of ideas floated about having purchasing some additional vehicles, maybe even larger vehicles for the crowds are some of the ideas. The other idea that we've talked about, and we've gotten a lot of requests, is to add another Sunrunner station in downtown St. Petersburg, closer to the waterfront, to connect to the Cross Bay Ferry and just to the waterfront. I mean, right now, the Sunrunner has some downtown stations, but it's a several block walk from from Beach Drive. And maybe that could be something that we could invest in. There's lots of other ideas on sort of back improvements, more fiber optic lines. Abhishek pitched as an idea to connect some of the stations. Some of the stations are connected with fiber in downtown St. Pete, but in some of the other areas, they're Spectrum cable, which didn't go great during the hurricane. No offense, Spectrum. So that would be there's a whole list. And then I heard Evan Morey and Cheryl Stacks from the city of St. Petersburg on my Sunrunner bus to the reception say they have a lot of ideas. So I don't know what those are.
Right.
The process would be hopefully, as Harry just described, that we would submit our proposal, our plan, and probably in like January timeframe, hope to get an approval. January, February, early next year, that the feds would agree to this, and then we'd be off and running. At least that's my
Okay.
plan, yeah.
So there's not like a quick deadline coming up where we need to return the money or apply for
No,
the projects? Or
I don't
improvements?
think so.
Okay.
Yeah. But we would like to move on it.
Oh, sure, because you
soon as-
never know when that phone's gonna ring.
Right.
All right, thank you, Chair.
Good. Any other questions? We have no cards on this, correct? I guess we need another motion and
I'll make a motion to
A vote.
approve the 2023 federal legislative priorities.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please bring up the voting screen.
Great.
And that is unanimous. Okay. Brad, do you want to update
Chair.
us on reports?
Thank you, Harry.
Thank you, Harry.
Stay warm up there.
He had some of that
All right.
report. Okay, so in your packet are two presentations we made to the PSA Planning Committee, and we'll be back before the full PSA board at hopefully soon. We are now soliciting for a consultant to conduct the South St. Petersburg CRA mobility study. And that is in conjunction with the city of St. Petersburg, using grant dollars that we received. So that's exciting. Stay tuned. When we have the consultant, that will come back to the PSA board. And then we had a great presentation, and I saw her here, from Miss April Lott. There she is. About conducting a pilot program at Grand Central Station in St. Petersburg, where PSTA for the first time would work directly with Ms. Lott's organization, which is a nonprofit called Directions for Living, who provides street teams to help with people that are unhoused get the services that they need, so that they, rather than PSA's typical process where we call law enforcement and they just move folks out and then they come back, to actually reduce the number of homeless people and get them the assistance that they need. So we're going to be meeting, after a really positive discussion at the planning committee, we're going to be moving forward with working on an agreement with Directions for Living that then I'll come back to, once we have that in place, for a pilot program just for Grand Central to do those street teams. Then we'll come back with you with what we've worked out. Hopefully maybe in a month or so. So those are in your packet. If I could highlight some of the performance reports are also in your packet. We've had some very successful ridership so far on the Sunrunner. The packet, your board packet includes the month of September, that we had a slight increase in ridership despite not operating 3 days of the month of September due to the hurricane, or the potential hurricane. A couple other items I wanted to highlight. If you could go to the next slide, the picture. We win a lot of awards. We won a marketing award. Last night we won this lovely inaugural St. Petersburg Downtown Partnership and Environmental Defense Fund Sustainability Sustainable Leadership Award. Was granted to PSTA, and our Vice Chair Driscoll was with me and our great planning staff that submitted the application. It was specifically for PSA's overall sustainability efforts, touted the electrification of our fleet and things like that. And so we were grateful to be there to receive that award. I wanted to also highlight, and we'll send out an Outlook invite to you on this. If you're available, I would welcome you to join me next Friday, November 4th. We're having our graduation luncheon for our Leadership PSTA program graduates for class of 2022 at the Feather Sound Country Club. That's where the lunch is going to be. Next Friday, November 4th, you're all invited to that. Now, we also had some other exciting things that happened at PSTA, and I think Whitney Fox is here to talk a little bit about that.
Good morning, board. Yes, thank you, Brad and Chair. I just wanted to put together a few highlights about, of course, the Sunrunner launch and over the weekend, how ridership went. And I just wanted to start the presentation by saying I'm sure everybody has felt the excitement from the Sunrunner launch. At least I hope you have. I know we've definitely been feeling it here at the offices, and it just really is a beautiful showcase of the collaborative effort that our board has, as well as with Brad and the staff and the different departments that really brought this to life. I mean, Abhishek, the project manager on the Sunrunner, did a fantastic job. I just wanted to give a quick round of applause to Abhishek because he really... I think every department here at PSTA can speak just glowing remarks of how well it was to work with Abhishek to make this successful. So from our planning department, obviously, to our transportation operations, HR for hiring new operators, our marketing communications team, everybody really worked well together to bring this to life. So I just wanted to commend everyone, especially our board, for making this happen, and of course, Brad. So I'll start with, of course, our ribbon cutting event on Thursday was a huge success. We had many people there, I think over 250, standing room only, and I think many different stakeholders were in attendance. So I just want to thank you all for attending and for supporting by being at the ribbon cutting. I hope that you enjoyed it and all of the excitement. And then I remember the last day, our very last Sunrunner meeting before the Sunrunner launch. We were sitting in our conference room with many different team members. And I remember this feeling of excitement and anxiety and just kind of saying, well, I hope people ride tomorrow. We'll see how it goes. And I woke up the next morning to my phone flooded with text messages and photos of people crowded at the stations, waiting and eager to be the very first Sunrunner riders. Whether they wanted to be a part of history, to say that they were one of the first ones, or wanted to get a gold card. There was just so much excitement, and I think everybody was very thrilled to see that people were genuinely eager to try it out and to see what it was all about. So these are just a few examples of photos of eager and excited people, crowded buses. It was, I think, a huge, huge success. I also wanted to bring some numbers in here to show some of our success. For example, from marketing communications perspective, for our social media, our PSTA accounts across all social media platforms gained 575 new followers just in the weekend of Sunrunner launch, compared to example October of last year, 65 followers for the whole month of October. So that is a huge improvement and more ways for us to communicate to more people. So we're very excited about that. We also had over 60,000 impressions. So impressions being our organic profile performance, total number of people who viewed our Sunrunner content on all social media platforms. And again, that's 60,000 impressions in just one weekend compared to, for example, 35,000 impressions in October of 2021. So that is huge for us as far as our social media following and ways for us to continue to communicate with the public. We were also very excited to see many different local businesses posting about the Sunrunner. We worked with them through the Gold Card promotion, and to get them on board and excited and to show that support from the business community was huge for us. So we were very excited to see businesses like Green Bench Brewery, Valhalla Bakery, and many others to post on their social media accounts about the Sunrunner launch. We also were very pleased to receive 34 news stories for the Sunrunner launch. So over the weekend, the news coverage was just unprecedented. We had a reach of over 27 million. So typically our press events usually garner on average 10 news stories and reach about 14 million. So to give you some perspective of how successful this weekend was. We had, of course, Tampa Bay Times, Bay News 9, ABC Action News, I Love the Berg, St. Pete Catalyst, and many more cover the launch of Sunrunner. We even had our fearless leader, Brad, who was willing, after the media event and the reception, woke up at 4 a.m. to be at a station at 5 a.m. to be interviewed by the media about the launch of Sunrunner that morning. So thank you, Brad, for being willing to do that. I think that was also very successful and built excitement. I just want to remind you that the celebration does not end after the launch of Sunrunner. We have many more things planned to tell the community about it and get them involved. For example, this Sunday is our second annual Halloween on Central, and this year it's brought to you by Sunrunner. We are very excited that just a week after launching, we can really have an opportunity like this where it's an event that includes 6 different Sunrunner stations. So we are going to have a Sunrunner vehicle as part of the event on Central Avenue. We'll be handing out brochures, talking to people about the Sunrunner. We'll also have staff, volunteers at those 6 stations at the event to show people how to get on the bus, tell them about it, and help with any questions they may have. This is a huge opportunity for us, especially right after Sunrunner launch, to really, break the seal for people who've maybe never been on transit or ridden the bus before. Last year there was an unexpected amount of people at the event. Over 75,000 people attended last year, so we're very excited to hopefully encourage people to get to the event on Sunrunner, get out of the event on Sunrunner, or just try it out while they're there. So I encourage you to please come and attend if you can, and of course, come stop by our tent. And last but not least, I just wanted to talk about the many different people and riders that myself, Brad, and many staff members brought back after this weekend. We had many different staff volunteering, talking to riders, and we were very pleased to speak to many people in the targeted audiences that we are trying to reach to ride Sunrunner. Tourists. I remember on the first day, I was handing out gold cards on one of the buses, and 2 people were like, "Oh, we don't need one, we're tourists, we're just visiting, we don't live here." And I'm thinking, you're not even from here and you knew about the Sunrunner and you're eager to ride it on the first day? It was very exciting to even talk to people who Airbnb out a bedroom in their home to help with supplemental income. And they were talking about how they wanted to ride to be able to tell their guests about riding Sunrunner. And their Airbnb guests were very excited. It hadn't even launched yet, and they wanted to ride it while they were there so they could take it out to the beach and not have to drive or take an Uber. Workers, we talked to workers who were eager and excited to get to work faster. To those few minutes they save every morning and afternoon getting to work adds up for their entire week. That's more time with their family. That's less stress on them and to get to where they need to go. And also students. We talked to USF St. Pete students, 2 RAs specifically, who are waiting to get on the bus, and they're planning a beach day to take a bunch of students out to the beach, and they don't own cars. So to have an option like this for USF St. Pete students to take without vehicles was, there was just a lot of excitement and a lot of testimonials. We saw kids bring on even their own little kids' bikes onto the bike racks, kids who were eager and excited to ride the new bus. So there was a huge audience that we tapped into that we heard a lot of people had never even been on a bus before. So it was a huge success. I hope that you feel that way as well, and that you are proud as a board to bring this to the community, and I'm excited to see how it continues to grow in excitement now that it has officially launched. So thank you all so much for being involved and for coming to all the celebrations, and we just wanted to give you some feedback on how everything was going. We hope that you've heard great stories as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Whitney. It was an incredible event, and you've done an amazing job.
Thank you so much.
It. Yes, Commissioner Flowers.
Fabulous event, great time. Popsicles were a big hit too.
Yes.
Popsicles.
Best popsicle.
Yeah, gluten-free, because I never had a gluten-free popsicle. Amazing. But someone sent a request, and I think Brad said he's either communicating about it or will communicate about it. But it was a young lady who wanted to catch the Sunrunner and ride, but was like, where can I park my car?
Yeah.
You know, or do we have a partnership or something with a garage or whatever, so that they could park their car, drive, ride it, and not have to try to remember to put, I guess, money in the, for the parking meter or whatever. So that was the only question, if you will, that I got, and Brad did respond. So thank you, and said that, that's a good idea, and so I think we're working on that. But other than that, I think it's really, really good. For places maybe to consider having the gold passes in the community, consider the Carter G. Woodson Museum. They have a lot of people that attend a variety of events there, and they take the walks, the art walks
Right.
and whatnot. Excuse me. And so they may desire to use the Sunrunner to take the art walk to come down 22nd to get to the museum for the mini events and then go back. So just saying, consider that a
Oh, yeah.
place for your cards.
Absolutely. Actually, Brad has already brought your first comment to our attention, and we are working on potentially putting together adding to a map options for parking specifically, so that if people do need to find it.
Great, great.
And I completely agree. I've actually been in contact with people with the Art Walk who are eager to work together, and we will be communicating, providing information to them, maybe even organizing an event where we can do something together. So great ideas. I think that if you have any more ideas like that, or you hear from the community, please bring them back, because we have a lot of work to continue to do to reach out to those different audiences and make sure that we are getting the word out to more people. So thank you.
But this was fabulous. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Commissioner Oliver?
Yes, I briefed Seminole City Council on the Sunrunner project last night, and they haven't been universally supportive, so I've been promoting it, and I wore my hat, and now they all want hats. And one of the counselors who has not been particularly supportive rode the Sunrunner over the weekend, because I've been pushing them to get on board. And that individual came back very positive, very supportive of the ridership. This individual said, nobody's going to ride it. He said it was jammed. And so the proof is in the pudding, and everyone has done an excellent job with this. Brad, you had said that we were going to perhaps reach a milestone on number of riders. Did we reach that milestone? Do we have any ridership totals at this point?
We did. I know that we reached the 10,000 rider milestone already, which is much faster than I thought we would get there. Yeah.
That's great.
It's going very, very well. Yeah. Yeah.
Commissioner Schulman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It truly was a great event. All the buses have that new bus smell, which is wonderful.
They do.
It really, you know it's fresh when you have the new bus smell. So,
Henry said he's going to keep that going. They'll continue.
if there's a little spray, that'd be fantastic. And I wanted to kind of piggyback on Commissioner Flowers' comments about parking. One of the things I would like to see when we do our outreach is helping people understand how they can connect to the Sunrunner using our other routes.
Yeah.
Right, so if we're talking about Seminole, can we provide maps to the folks in Seminole and say, here are the routes in Seminole that connect to the Sunrunner? If we're here in downtown, Northeast St. Pete, how are you connecting to the Sunrunner? So truly make it easy, not just for parking. My wife actually took the number 4 bus to meet us at the Sunrunner terminal for the kickoff, so we didn't have 2 cars downtown. And she's like, that was super easy. It was actually her first time riding the bus without me, because I always did everything on my app. So when we do the Car-Free St. Pete, helping people connect, and that's a great crowd because on the Halloween, because they're already interested in being car-free. Sure. But the more we can assist people and give marketing materials to the different communities, whether it be Pinellas Park, Seminole, that might be connecting, that would be great. And the last thing, I probably shouldn't have been, but I was truly giddy when I opened the transit app and saw Sunrunner. Like, it is listed as Sunrunner on there. I was like, that is fantastic. So it was, and all the work here that was done shows why PSTA is winning awards in marketing, because not only are we getting the word out, but then we also have the numbers to show that it's working. So I appreciate the work that you and every other department's doing. Thank you.
Absolutely, and I completely agree. I think that part of it, to your point of communicating, okay, but how can we get to the Sunrunner from our other routes? From what I think I've experienced is a lot of people have even messaged me like, Whitney, can I come ride the Sunrunner with you? I've never ridden the bus before, and I'm just feeling a little anxious about it. So, people, it's just breaking that seal of, like you said, somebody riding the 4 to get to the Sunrunner and being like, oh wait, that was really easy. It's just that first experience of what kind of community events and communications can we provide to say, come with us, we'll show you how to do it. And that's kind of the plan. I know a lot of people think like, oh, you must be so relieved now that the Sunrunner is launched. It's like, oh no, we have a lot more work to do to get the word out and provide those opportunities to the community to try it, and then maybe think like, okay, well, maybe I'll ride the regular system to get to it or to get around as well. So that's definitely something we're working on.
I spoke to Councilwoman Gabbard, who said that she was going to, in the winter, do a trip with her son, who's really interested in learning all about the transit system. We talked about engaging the neighborhood associations in her neighborhood, in her district, saying, how can we get these folks that are already engaged in the community the information they need, bring out our outreach team to show them how to use the bus, how to use the app, because there is a little, it's funny, you travel to a different city and you do the research and you figure it out, and you do it.
Right.
But then you come home and you're like, that seems really hard to do here. I don't know what there's a mental block that we all seem to have about doing that research locally. And so we just need a little bit more hand-holding. So I'm looking forward to hearing the reports on, the neighborhoods that we're talking to, the communities that we're talking to, and how they're engaging our larger transit system with the Sunrunner being the catalyst that makes them want to try.
Exactly.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else?
If you could just go back to that picture of Abhishek, I just want to. So,
It wasn't the mummy?
no, not the mummy. No, I was maybe more like the mummy. Yes, Whitney touted that we had that great event on Thursday, and then Friday morning, and I see Sabrina's here, she was with me at 4:30 in the morning out there.
wow.
And it was very, very cold, and I was not dressed appropriately. And doing those interviews, and I was like, who's watching at this hour? And it was just very lonely, and Sabrina was the only other person there. And so I was like, well, I don't know if anyone's gonna ride the thing. And then, so I was like, I wanna see the first ride. And then I went over to a station where it was still, the Sunrunner started at 6, so I had time to get to a station. And I took that picture. The door opened up, and there's Abhishek in a completely jammed bus, like the biggest smile on his face. It was just like, it was the greatest thing I've ever seen. It was like, oh, yes. He was very happy. Yeah, yeah.
I just realized that's my neighbor.
Oh.
I was like, is this your neighbor? Yeah, I just realized that's my neighbor from across.
okay.
Yeah, they just bought the house across the street from me. And I'm like, oh my God.
All right,
Yeah, yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
thank you. All right. Okay, do we have any other business? No other business. Any comments from the board? Okay. Our next meeting is December 7th at 9 a.m. This meeting is adjourned.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
If you haven't signed the posters, there's 2 posters up there. Okay. Karen, did you sign the posters?
Oh, I don't know, History Museum or something.
School bus didn't show up today.
Brad,
I hope that we'll,
I already sent the agreement to Rachel to send.
It is never too early for lunch. I eat lunch at 11.